You fear being alone because you haven't met yourself yet. That's not poetry. That's diagnosis. See, somewhere in your life, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was years ago, you decided that being alone meant something was wrong with you. You believed the silence around you was evidence of abandonment. You thought the empty room was proof that you didn't matter. And now, every moment you spend without noise, without distraction, without someone else's voice confirming your existence, feels like death. But I'm here to tell you something that will shake your entire foundation. That belief is a lie. And the sooner you recognize it as a lie, the sooner your real life begins. You've been living in a prison you built yourself, and the bars are made of beliefs that were never true. Not one of them. You walk through each day carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. You carry the weight of other people's opinions. You carry the weight of their disappointments. You carry the weight of a version of yourself that never even existed. And the worst part, you think this weight proves something about who you are. It doesn't. Listen to me carefully. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely, and you've been confusing the two your entire life. Loneliness is a feeling that comes from disconnection from others, from yourself, from your purpose. But aloneness is a classroom. It's where you meet yourself. It's where real power is built. You're not here today by accident. Something in your chest is burning. Something in your spirit is refusing to accept the small, safe version of yourself that everyone told you to become. That burning, that's not restlessness, that's recognition. That's your real self trying to wake up. And there are 5 beliefs, deep, poisonous, ancient beliefs that have been keeping you asleep. They've been blocking the door to who you're actually supposed to become. So I want to walk you through them one by one. And when we're done, you're going to understand why you've been struggling. And more than that, you're going to know what to do about it. The first belief you must stop believing is this: I am my past. Do you know what a seed is? It's potential locked in a container so small you can hold it in your hand. It's complete nothingness on the outside. It's dark. It's silent. It has no leaves. It has no branches. It has no flowers. To look at a seed, you would never know what it's capable of becoming. You'd see something dead, something useless, something better suited for trash than for earth. But then something happens. The seed gets buried in darkness. It gets covered in dirt. And for weeks, maybe months, nothing visible changes to anyone watching from above. It looks like nothing is happening. The seed is just sitting there, useless, forgotten, dead, except it's not underground. In that darkness, something miraculous is occurring. The seed is breaking open. Its shell is cracking. Something inside is reaching down, searching for water. Something inside is reaching up, searching for light. The seed is dying to everything it was so that it can become everything it's supposed to be. And this transformation, this resurrection, it happens entirely in secret. It happens in the dark. It happens when no one is watching. You are not your past. Your past is the shell. Your past is the container that held you safe while you were becoming something greater. And yes, maybe your past was painful. Maybe it was lonely. Maybe it was filled with rejection and abandonment and things that should never have happened to you. But that pain, that's not your identity. That's not your destiny. That's the cracking of the shell. That's the breaking open that had to happen so that something new could emerge. I know you've been treating your past like a life sentence. I know you've been carrying it like it defines you. I know there are nights when you lie awake replaying moments you wish you could erase. And you've convinced yourself that those moments are proof of who you are, but they're not. Your past is the evidence of what happened to you. It's not the evidence of what's possible through you. There's a difference. A massive, enormous, life-changing difference. Think about this. Every single person who ever became something extraordinary had a past they had to overcome. Every entrepreneur who built an empire started somewhere small and forgotten. Every healer who changed lives first had to heal their own wounds in secret. Every visionary who saw possibility when everyone else saw obstacles first had to sit alone in darkness and ask themselves the hardest question: am I going to let my history be the ceiling on my future, or am I going to let my pain be the foundation for my power? You know what I see when I look at people who are trapped by their past? I see people who've decided that what happened to them is more powerful than what's happening through them right now. They've given their history more authority than their destiny. They have let the worst moment of their life become louder than the potential of their future. But that's a choice. It's not a sentence. It's a choice. And you don't have to make it anymore. See, your past doesn't define you, because you are not static. You are not a photograph. You are not frozen in time. You are a living, breathing, evolving being. Every single day you wake up, you have the power to be different. Every single moment you have the opportunity to respond differently than you did before. You can take everything that happened to you and transform it into something that serves the world. That's the power you've been ignoring. The second belief you must stop believing is this: I am what people think of me. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest. How many hours have you spent in the last week thinking about what someone else thinks of you? How many conversations have you replayed in your mind, analyzing every word you said, wondering if they judged you? How many times have you changed yourself, your words, your dreams, your appearance, your opinions, because you were terrified of someone else's judgment? Don't answer me. Answer yourself. But be real about it. Here's what I know. You're exhausted. You're exhausted from being someone you're not. You're exhausted from performing. You're exhausted from editing yourself. You're exhausted from trying to be small enough, quiet enough, safe enough that nobody gets uncomfortable with who you actually are. And you've been doing it so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to just be yourself. There's a manufacturer, see, and this manufacturer creates something with intention. The manufacturer knows exactly what this thing is designed for. The manufacturer understands its purpose, its power, its unique function. The manufacturer builds it with specific precision. And then one day the creation looks at itself and says, but what if I was supposed to be something different? What if the manufacturer made a mistake? What if I'm not really meant for what I was designed for? So the creation starts trying to be something else. It starts forcing itself into shapes it wasn't built for. It starts imitating other creations. It starts asking everyone else what it should be, what it should do, what it should become. And it spends its entire existence stressed, broken, frustrated, failing at being something it was never meant to be, while simultaneously neglecting the very thing it was perfectly designed to accomplish. That's you. That's what you've been doing. You were designed by intelligence so vast and so deep that you can't even comprehend it. You were designed with intention. You were designed with purpose. You were designed with specific gifts, specific talents, specific ways of seeing the world that nobody else has. And instead of trusting that design, you've been asking people who are also confused about their own design what you should be. Think about that for a second. You're taking direction from people who don't know their own direction. Do you know what I've noticed? The people who believe they are what everyone thinks of them are the people who are always changing. They are unstable. They are inconsistent. They're like boats without anchors, drifting with every wind and wave. One person thinks they're too loud, so they become quiet. Another person thinks they're too quiet, so they become loud. Someone criticizes their dreams, so they abandon them. Someone doubts their abilities, so they stop trying. They're never solid. They're never rooted. They're never at peace. But the people who stop believing they are what everyone thinks of them, they're the ones who walk into a room and you can feel the difference. They're not performing. They're not editing. They're not desperately searching your face to see if you approve. They're just being. And that presence, that simple, unshakable presence, is what actually makes people trust them. That's what makes people want to follow them. That's what makes people respect them. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real. Here's the truth that nobody tells you. The people whose approval you're chasing don't actually matter as much as you think they do. The person at work who made that comment, they forgot about it by the next day. The family member who criticized your choices, they're too busy worrying about themselves to be thinking about you as much as you're thinking about their judgment. The friend who made you feel small, they're probably feeling small themselves. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Everyone is wrestling with their own inadequacy. Everyone is wondering if they're enough. And the people who are most critical, they're usually the ones who are most insecure about themselves. So why are you letting their insecurity become your instruction manual? This is what I need you to hear. Your worth is not determined by someone's opinion. Your value is not created by someone's approval. Your potential is not limited by someone's doubt. You came into this world with inherent value. You have it right now. Not when you lose the weight, not when you get the job, not when you find a partner, not when you reach the goal. Right now, as you are complete, whole, enough. And the second you stop needing everyone else to confirm that, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your choices shift, your entire life shifts. Because instead of being driven by fear and approval seeking, you're driven by clarity and purpose. Instead of asking, what do they think? You start asking, what do I believe? Instead of performing, you start creating. That's when real power enters your life. The third belief you must stop believing is this: isolation is punishment. I want you to picture something with me. Picture a forest, not a small grove of trees, a real forest. Thousands and thousands of trees, all packed closely together, all growing upward at the same time. And what's interesting is that most people think this forest is crowded. Most people think these trees are suffering because they can't have their own space. Most people think if you really love trees, you'd spread them out, give them distance, separate them. But that's not how forests work. Forests thrive in closeness. Trees in forests grow differently than isolated trees. Trees in forests develop root systems that intertwine with other root systems. They create a network underground. They support each other. They share nutrients through that network. When one tree is struggling, the network feeds it. When one tree is flourishing, it gives back to the network. They grow together and they grow stronger because of the closeness, not in spite of it. But here's what happens when a tree grows isolated, alone, with no other trees around it. That tree develops deeper roots. That tree doesn't rely on the network. That tree has to draw its own water from deep in the earth. That tree has to be more self-sufficient. That tree becomes more resilient because it has to. The isolation doesn't weaken it, it strengthens it. The solitude doesn't damage it, it deepens it. You are not meant to be a tree in a forest all the time. Sometimes you need community. Sometimes you need connection. Sometimes you need the network. But sometimes, and this is what everyone is afraid to tell you, sometimes you need to grow alone. You've been interpreting your seasons of isolation as seasons of punishment. You've been reading your loneliness as rejection. You've been seeing your solitude as evidence that something is wrong with you. But what if it's actually the opposite? What if the isolation you've been resisting is the very thing that's supposed to deepen you? What if the loneliness you've been running from is actually trying to teach you something about yourself that you could never learn in a crowd? There's a particular kind of growth that only happens in silence. There's a depth that only develops in solitude. There's a clarity that only emerges when you're alone with your own thoughts, your own questions, your own pain, your own potential. I know someone, a young man. He grew up around people constantly. His house was always full. His schedule was always packed. He was never alone, and he thought that meant something was wrong with him. He thought it meant he was lonely. He thought it meant people didn't really care about him. They just tolerated him. So one season of his life, everything changed. People moved away. Relationships ended. He found himself for the first time in years actually alone. And he panicked. His first instinct was to fill it, to call people, to go out, to distract himself, to do anything but sit with the silence. But he didn't. He stayed with it. And in that silence, something extraordinary happened. He started to hear his own voice for the first time. He started to understand what actually mattered to him versus what he thought should matter to him. He started to discover strengths in himself he never knew he had. He started to develop a relationship with himself that he'd never had before. And when people came back into his life because they did, he was different. He was solid. He was clear. He was no longer performing. He was no longer desperate for connection. He was choosing connection from a place of wholeness instead of brokenness. And that changed everything about those relationships. The isolation didn't punish him. It prepared him. And I'm telling you, that's what's happening to you right now. If you're in a season of solitude, if you're feeling alone, if you're in a time where it seems like everyone else is moving on and you're stuck, this is not punishment. This is preparation. This is the universe or God or existence or whatever you believe in saying, I need to deepen you. I need to strengthen you. I need to teach you things about yourself that you could never learn any other way. So I'm going to clear away the noise. I'm going to create the silence. And in that silence, you're going to meet yourself. But you have to choose to see it that way. You have to choose to trust it. You have to stop fighting the isolation and start using it. Most people won't do this. Most people will spend their solitude running from it, resenting it, believing it means they're unlovable. But not you, not anymore. Because if you're still listening to this message, something in you already knows there's a purpose in the silence. The fourth belief you must stop believing is this: my calling is what I do. There's a craftsman, a blacksmith, and he's creating a blade. And he takes raw metal and he heats it in the fire until it's glowing red. Then he takes it out and he strikes it with his hammer. He hits it hard. The metal sparks. It reshapes. He puts it back in the fire. He takes it out again. He strikes it again, harder this time. The metal protests. It fights. It wants to stay in its comfortable shape. But the craftsman doesn't stop. He knows something the metal doesn't know. He knows that the only way this metal becomes a blade is through pressure. The only way it becomes sharp is through friction. The only way it fulfills its purpose is by being transformed through difficulty. You are that metal. Your calling is not a career. Your calling is not a job title. Your calling is not what appears on your business card. I know you've been taught to think that way. I know the world has told you that your calling is something you do for money, and if nobody's paying you for it, it doesn't count. I know you've been trained to think that your calling is your profession and your profession is your identity, but that's one of the great lies. Your calling is who you are becoming through the pressures of your life. Your calling is the person you're being shaped into. Your calling is the impact you have on people, not through your job, but through your presence. Your calling is the way you love, the way you listen, the way you show up, the way you respond when no one's watching. That's your calling. Some of the greatest callings in the world are being fulfilled right now by people who don't get paid for them. A mother who sacrifices her own dreams to raise her children with presence and love, that's fulfilling a calling. A teacher who pours into students even though the world doesn't pay them what they deserve, that's fulfilling a calling. A friend who listens to another friend's pain and helps them find hope, that's fulfilling a calling. A person who works a job that feels ordinary while quietly changing the lives of people around them through their character, that's fulfilling a calling. But the world has taught you to be suspicious of these callings. The world has taught you to look for something flashy, something that impresses people, something that comes with a title and status and money and public recognition. And if your calling isn't visible to the world, you're being taught to think it doesn't matter. So you spend your entire life chasing the visible calling while completely neglecting the true calling. Think about this. If you're doing what you think you're supposed to do, if you're in the career you planned for, if you're achieving the goals you set, but you're doing it all from a place of emptiness, a place of performing, a place of trying to be someone you're not, are you fulfilling your calling, or are you just living someone else's dream? Here's what I believe. Your calling is happening right now. It's not something you're waiting to find. It's not something that exists in the future after you've accomplished certain things. It's not something that requires permission or credentials or the right circumstances. Your calling is the work of becoming yourself. Your calling is the labor of transforming your pain into purpose. Your calling is the daily practice of showing up as your truest self in a world that keeps trying to convince you to be fake. Everything else is just details. Because when you're clear on your real calling, when you understand that you're being shaped into someone significant, someone who matters, someone who's going to leave this world different because you were in it then, everything else gets recontextualized. Your job becomes a place where you practice presence. Your relationships become spaces where you practice love. Your struggles become opportunities to practice resilience. Your solitude becomes time to practice knowing yourself. You're not waiting for your calling to begin. Your calling began the moment you decided you were no longer going to accept the small version of yourself that the world tried to convince you to be. The fifth belief you must stop believing is this: I don't have time. I need to pause here because I need to ask you something. And I want you to answer this honestly, not with your head, but with your heart. Are you still listening? Because most people aren't. Most people have moved on to something else by now. They've distracted themselves. They've convinced themselves that this message isn't for them. They've decided that what's being said here is too challenging, too demanding, too real. But if you're still listening, if you're still here, then something inside you is waking up. Something inside you is recognizing truth. And that something is your real self. That's your destiny trying to speak to you. That's your potential refusing to stay silent any longer. So let me ask you this. How much time do you spend every day doing things that don't matter? How much time do you spend scrolling through the lives of people you don't know? How much time do you spend worrying about things you can't control? How much time do you spend waiting for the right moment that's never going to come? I'll tell you how much time. Too much. You have exactly as much time as everyone else who's ever lived. You have 24 hours a day. You have 7 days a week. You don't have less time than successful people. You don't have less time than fulfilled people. You have the same amount of time. But you believe you don't have time because you haven't decided what matters. When you decide something truly matters, you find time for it. You find time to do it. You find time to pursue it. You find time to sacrifice for it. You don't say, I don't have time for that. You say, that's not my priority right now. Which is honest, which is real, which gives you the power to change it. But we don't say it that way, because saying it that way requires responsibility. Saying I don't have time means the problem is external, circumstantial, outside of your control. Saying that's not my priority means the problem is internal. It's about your choices. It's about your decisions. And that's terrifying, because it means you could change it if you really wanted to. So here's what I need you to understand. You don't lack time. You lack priority. You don't lack opportunity. You lack commitment. You don't lack capability. You lack courage. And the reason you lack courage is because deep down, you're still believing the first four beliefs. You're still thinking your past defines you. You're still thinking your worth depends on others' opinions. You're still seeing your solitude as punishment instead of preparation. You're still chasing a calling that isn't yours. So you tell yourself you don't have time for the real work. You tell yourself you don't have time to heal. You tell yourself you don't have time to grow. You tell yourself you don't have time to become who you are actually supposed to be. And you're right, you don't have time. Not because time is limited, but because you're spending all your time being someone you're not. The moment you stop doing that, everything changes. Let me tell you about someone I know. Actually, you might know them too, or you might be them. This person was stuck. They were in a job that was killing their soul. They were in relationships that were draining their spirit. They were performing constantly. They were exhausted. And they kept saying, I don't have time to change this. I don't have time to find out who I really am. I don't have time to pursue my actual dreams. I'm too busy. My life is too full. My responsibilities are too heavy. And then something happened. They got sick. Not terminally, but sick enough that they couldn't ignore it. And for the first time in years, they had to slow down. They had to be still. They had to face themselves. And in that stillness, something shifted. They realized that they'd been saying they didn't have time for the things that actually mattered while making plenty of time for the things that didn't. They had been too busy to pray, too busy to reflect, too busy to question, too busy to change. But suddenly, in the middle of a health crisis, they had time for all of it. And here's the thing. Once they had that realization, they didn't wait for another crisis. They decided right then. They started making different choices. They started saying no to things that didn't matter. They started saying yes to things that did. They started rebuilding their life from a place of honesty and authenticity instead of performance and obligation. And you know what happened? They found time. Not because their circumstances changed, but because their priorities change. And when your priorities change, your time follows. This is not about time management. This is about life management. This is about deciding right now that you're going to stop living for other people's approval and start living for your own growth. This is about deciding right now that you're going to stop performing and start becoming. This is about deciding right now that you're going to stop running from your pain and start using it to build your strength. You have time. You've always had time. What you didn't have was permission. What you didn't have was courage. What you didn't have was clarity. And I'm giving you those things right now. Permission to be alone. Permission to be yourself. Permission to have a calling that only you understand. Permission to prioritize your growth even if nobody else understands it. Permission to change. Permission to fail. Permission to heal. Do you feel it? Do you feel something shifting inside you right now? Because this is the moment. This is the exact moment where you have a choice. You can go back to the way things were. You can go back to believing those 5 lies. You can go back to performing. You can go back to waiting. You can go back to being small. Or you can take everything you're feeling right now and let it become the foundation of a new life. And what happens next is going to depend entirely on you. I'm going to tell you something that nobody tells you. And I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. The greatest transformation doesn't happen when circumstances change. The greatest transformation happens when you do, when you wake up, when you see the truth, when you stop accepting the version of yourself that the world created and start building the version of yourself that God created. And that's what's happened to you right now. You grow in silence. You heal in silence. You rise in silence. That's not a punishment. That's a promise. That's the law of nature. That's how everything significant gets built in the dark, in the quiet, in the place where nobody's watching, in the place where you're forced to be honest with yourself because nobody else is around to lie to. Your past tried to break you, but it didn't. It shaped you. It deepened you. It gave you wisdom. It gave you compassion. It gave you resilience. Everything that happened to you was meant to prepare you for everything you meant to become. The people whose approval you've been chasing, they don't matter. Their opinions don't define you. Their doubts don't limit you. You are not responsible for making other people comfortable with your existence. You are only responsible for being honest about who you are and courageous about who you're becoming. Your isolation wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was the forest teaching you how to stand alone. It was pressure teaching you how to become sharp. It was darkness teaching you how to create your own light. Your calling isn't what's on your resume. Your calling is who you are becoming. Your calling is the impact you have on people through your presence, your integrity, your character, your love. Your calling is the daily choice to show up as your truest self, and your time, you have more than you think. You have all the time you need to become who you're supposed to be, but only if you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. Only if you start making different choices. Only if you start building a different life. This is not the end of this message. This is the beginning of your life. Because now you know. Now you see it. The beliefs that have been holding you back are visible to you. And once something is visible, you have power over it. You can't change what you don't see, but now you see, so now you can change. Your past is not your destiny. Your pain is not your identity. Your solitude is not your rejection. Your calling is bigger than your career, and your time is not an excuse, it's an opportunity. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not after you get everything together, not after you figure it all out, not after you're finally good enough. Right now, today, this moment. The world doesn't need another version of you performing for approval. The world needs the real you. The world needs your gifts. The world needs your perspective. The world needs your love. The world needs your truth. And the only thing standing between you and that world is your willingness to be honest with yourself. So I want to leave you with this. Take everything you felt today and let it become the moment when everything changed. Let this be the moment you decided you were done performing. Let this be the moment you decided to trust yourself more than you trust other people's opinions. Let this be the moment you decided to use your solitude to deepen yourself instead of running from it. Let this be the moment you realize that your real calling is about who you are, not what you do. Let this be the moment you took back your time. Let this be the moment you decided to become yourself. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need anyone's validation. You never did. Everything you need is already inside you. It's been there all along, waiting, watching, believing. Even when you didn't believe in yourself, it was believing in you. That's your real self. That's your true power. That's your destiny. And it's time to stop hiding from it. If this message spoke to your heart, if something inside you woke up while listening to this, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who's been performing. Share it with someone who's been lonely. Share it with someone who's been carrying the weight of other people's expectations. Share it with someone who's forgotten who they are, because that person needs to know they're not alone. That person needs to know there's hope. That person needs to know they're not broken, they're just becoming. And if you want more messages that are going to challenge you, transform you, and keep growing your soul, then stay close, subscribe, because this is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning. And the beginning is always the most important part. Your life is about to change. Not because of me, but because you decided to listen. Because you decided to question the beliefs that have been holding you back. Because you decided that today is the day everything shifts. Welcome home to yourself. Your real life starts now.